Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So I'm just out surveying this old burned out forest. A lot of forest fires going on around here right now. There's a lot of communities within this region that have been evacuated. This is already burned out. I'm guessing this may have actually been from earlier this year. The soot still seems pretty fresh on a lot of the trees, but there is a lot of lower growth, mostly aspen, which can grow really quickly. And aspen shoots, some lower brush, but it looks like this is fairly recent, but it's hard to say. So I just want to kind of shoot the breeze a bit today about what's been going on up where I live. And there's definitely a lot of fire activity. A lot of it is far removed from the city that I live in. Nonetheless, we've still been getting a lot of smoke. I'm going to post a link to a really excellent resource. It's called firesmoke.ca, and you can go on there. It shows all the fires that are burning in North America, and it shows you which way the winds are blowing, what the air quality is going to be like, when you can expect to get smoke, because it shows you out to about 72 hours with some degree of accuracy where that smoke's going to be. And I actually use that to help me find this place right here. So I thought I would take this opportunity and use this dystopian backdrop to talk a bit about collapse as a process, not an event. Barring some nuclear event, a meteor strike, a major cyber attack that shuts down the entire power grid, a high altitude EMP that shuts down the power grid, a coronal mass ejection, barring any of those abrupt and quick SHTF scenarios, it's very likely that we'll see a slow burn collapse, if anything. Who knows, maybe humanity prevails and onward and upward to a utopian world. But I'm getting the sense that that's not the direction we're going, in spite of all of the grand pursuits of the billionaires who are trying to get us out of these dilemmas that perhaps they had some hand in causing in the first place. But that's another story. Collapse as a process is a good thing in the sense that it means that you still have time to prepare. And with collapse, it's important to remember that out of the ashes, a phoenix can rise. Forest fires are a great way of cleaning. It's a way of cleansing the forest of all the old growth so new stuff can come in, so a new generation of life can emerge and continue the evolutionary process. If it was just the same old forest all the time, you know, the trees would probably never evolve because they'd never need to. So the forest fires and the cycles of destruction are important in terms of compelling us forward. I've talked on this channel before about how a giga death scenario is likely, if history is any indication of how these things go, it's likely we would see some sort of giga death scenario. That is a scenario where at least 1 billion people, the human population corrected by 1 billion. Now that may be a soft kill scenario where it takes a while for that to happen. It could be in the case of infertility crisis, who knows? It might be something slow. It might not be like a crazy pandemic that actually has a really notable fatality rate. It could be something really slow, but that giga death scenario would likely precede our next evolution. Okay, so like you had the bubonic plague and you had the fires of London, you had these things happen from which the Enlightenment happened. So this forest fire, as bad as it is, okay, there is natural cycles. However, a lot of people brush off what is happening right now, all of the weather anomalies that we're seeing around the world, whether that be flooding in Europe or the droughts in North America, brushing that off as cyclical. The problem is, yes, there are cycles, but remember, there were places on the planet that were once thriving tropical rainforests and they're now desertified. So as much as there are cycles, sometimes cycles do end, especially when you have the X factor involved, which is the anthropogenic effects, the human-caused effects. People, okay? So we do have an effect. We have a profound effect. Even in North America, even in the great boreal forests of Canada, it's very hard to find a place which has been untouched or at least unsurveyed. You can go deep into the bush if you want to, but you're going to be walking, because anywhere you're accessing from a road, somebody's been there. Human beings are everywhere. If you ever go on Google Earth, just go and zoom in on like the country of India or something. Every single inch of that soil has been turned over by somebody. So we definitely have a profound effect to tip the balance of nature. So while there is a cyclical aspect to this, there's definitely a concern that we may have reached a tipping point. Okay, there's a concern that this is actually going to get a lot worse, and that we've stepped outside the cycle, and that lots of this could be potentially permanent. Now, what does that mean? That means that we have time to prepare for what's coming. And that also means that we shouldn't burn ourselves out worrying about abrupt collapse scenarios. It may just be a very long-winded, gradual collapse. These things don't happen overnight. Rome wasn't collapsed in a day. Maybe I should put that one on a t-shirt. Rome didn't collapse in a day. I do think that humanity is going to prevail through this great filter that's coming. Okay, this great grand correction, whether that be economically induced or just induced by a scarcity of resources as a result of these abrupt climate shifts. One of my big concerns for the future is situating myself in a bug out location that is going to be low risk of natural disasters. And because forest fires are becoming so prevalent now, it doesn't matter where you live. It might be wet there this year. Next year, it might be a totally different story. So for me, I don't want to live in a forested region. It's just too risky nowadays. So I'm probably going to be getting some land that is going to skirt the boreal forest with the Great Plains. They call it the boreal transition zone. And that creates a nice buffer of grassland between you and the forest. That's where I'm probably going to drop anchor. It's looking like, but you know, I mean, the mountains and the valley is still calling me, Fraser Valley, but at the same time, there's a lot of risks in that region. There's population density, there's the threat of the Juan de Fuca fault line, the earthquake situation, tsunamis, you know, forest fires. But aside that, I mean, it's probably one of the few places you can survive in Canada year round. So you really have to look at strategic relocation. And I do think there still is time to do that. Like I say, barring some really abrupt, hard-hitting black swan event, which no doubt we could see. But I wanted to show you guys these visuals to show you that this is a very real issue. And as much as the part of this is cyclical, this could be a prescribed burn for all I know. Prescribed burn is where they pre-burn a certain area in order to prevent a fire from jumping and spreading into a certain community or whatnot. They do it in a controlled fashion in more favorable conditions so that it doesn't burn in unfavorable conditions and allow the fire to spread. So I don't know, that could potentially be the case here, but I wanted to give you this to show you some perspective and show you two sides of the coin, to show you that, yeah, you know, this is bad, and it's bad for a lot of the impacted communities, and it is abnormal. Based in my experience, the droughts that we're seeing are incredibly abnormal. The temperatures that we're seeing are breaking all kinds of records. And there is a good chance that this might not be cyclical. But as you can see from all the green shrubbery on the ground, the phoenix will rise from the ashes. You will be able to rebuild. We will rebuild this world so long as our hearts are still beating. And don't despair in the future. You know, collapse is not the end. It's just a very long and arduous transitory period, as Chair Powell loves to say. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comments section, do you think what is happening right now is cyclical, or do you think that we as a species have tipped the scales and that we are, as some scientists say, in the midst of the Anthropocene extinction, the 6th mass extinction event? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget, if you are in a fire-prone region, I would recommend getting a gas mask with P3 smoke filters If you wanted to take it a step above that, you can get the carbon monoxide filters, which are going to protect you from carbon monoxide inhalation if you find yourself in an enclosed space for a prolonged period of time. There was some people in Layton in particular in BC who had to hunker down because they got caught in the fire. So if you are caught in a place, you could potentially die from carbon monoxide inhalation. So that's when those filters would come in handy. But more often than not, a P3 filter is going to be sufficient. Other things you might want to consider are a fire blanket, a fire extinguisher, of course. Definitely get a good medical kit and always have your evac bag ready to go. Make sure that you know, even if you don't have a bug out bag, if you are forced to evacuate in 15 minutes, have all of your keepsakes and the stuff that you absolutely don't want to use either in a box or know where it is, and have a list of stuff that you want to collect so you can collect it in a pinch. Stay safe, guys. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.